Senator, the Most Honorable Winston Gawi.
Good morning, Mr. President. Guide, we beseech the Almighty God, members of the Senate, that we may wisely deliberate for the good of this country and for the glory of thy holy name. Members, please join with me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you, honorable members. Pray be seated. Honorable members, the sitting of this House now resumes, and based on where we adjourned on the earlier part of this sitting last week, Thursday, we would now continue with the bills, and once the bills is finished, we will revert to the standing order and take the other matters, the minutes, questions, and motions. I look forward to a most productive day. Thank you, honorable members.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President.
Members, you are on the bill.
Spice Mass Corporation.
Spice Mass Corporation. Huh? Museum. Yes, so, excuse me, she's taking the Spice Corporation bill. One second. 1 minute, Senator. The bill that's before us now, which is being piloted by Senator the Honorable Brenda Hood, and the bill upon which we will start today's proceedings is the Spice Mass Corporation Amendment Bill 2017. The museum bill, we took it for its first reading, and it was indicated at that time that time would be allowed for public comment on the museum bill before it comes back for the second reading. And the first reading was already done in the first part of this sitting of the House on last Thursday. So for the benefit of members, so that we are all on the same page, the bill before us is the Spice Mass Corporation Amendment Bill 2017. Senator, the Honorable Brenda Hood.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I beg to introduce for first reading a bill.
Proceed. I thought the clerk needed my attention on the matter.
Okay. Mr. President, I beg to introduce for first reading a bill for an act shortly entitled Spice Mass Corporation Amendment Bill 2017.
An act to amend the Spice Mass Corporation Act number 10 of 2011, shortly entitled Spice Mass Corporation Amendment Bill 2017.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the relevant standing order of the Senate be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all its stages at this sitting.
The question is that the relevant standing orders of the Senate be suspended to enable the bill, Spice Mass Corporation Amendment Bill 2017, to be taken through all of its stages at this sitting. Those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Senator Hood.
Mr. President, I beg to move the second reading of the bill.
Is that the bill be read a second time? Senator Hood.
Mr. President, this Spice Mass Amendment Bill seeks to amend the Spice Mass Corporation Act of 2011. Mr. President, we all are aware of the economic impact of Spice Mass to the development of this country. We are all aware of the persons that benefit financially as a result of Spice Mass. Over the years, we have continued to market Spice Mass as one of the national events of this country, and people come from all over the world to have a great time, but at the same time, the economic benefits cannot be underestimated. I must commend the the Tourism Authority for assisting with the marketing of Spice Mass to this destination. As we are aware, for the past few years, since 2011, 2012, the numbers of persons coming to Spice Mass has increased tremendously. As a result of this, we have tried over the years to make sure that the events are held at a standard that we are very proud of. But I must indicate, Mr. President, that in 2013, when this administration came into office and we took over all of the activities of running the state, the Spice Mass Corporation was another event which operates as a statutory body where events were taking place. At that point in time, in 2013, Spice Mass was operating at a deficit of over $800,000. So we took over the running of Spice Mass with a very large deficit. Over the years, Mr. President, we have tried as much as we can to make sure that we try to pay off some of the debts that we have incurred. However, it has been very hard to do this because of the expenses that occur as a result of hosting Spice Mass throughout the years. I will spend some time at this point to talk about some of the expenses. And I'm saying all of this before I present the amendment to the bill, to give you a history of Spice Mass and for you to understand the genesis in which we are recommending certain license fees for the operations of Spice Mass. In 2012, the gate receipts for Spice Mass was a little over $524,000. In 2013, that's when this government came into office, and Spice Master was in August of 2013. The gate receipts at that time was $463,000, a little over $464,000. In 2014, it was $529,456.58. In 2015, it rose to a little over $611,000. And I must say, in that year, 2015, we were able to raise some funds from outside externally. I'm not too sure if people are aware, the subvention that we receive from Spice Mask is $700,000, and that comes out of the coffers of government, the taxpayers' money. That's what comes into Spice Mask. Everything else is from sponsorship, is from activities that are held, is from gate receipts. In 2016, and that was a good year, and what the gate receipts were, $780,221.26. That were the gate receipts. So we moved from $523,000 to $780,000. But yet, the deficit continues to be there because every year you have to pay prize monies, you have to pay the vendors, you have to pay for stage lighting, security, and it goes on and on. All events, with the exception of Groovy and Soca Semis, showed improvement over the years. The registration fees, because there is a small registration fee that members pay to if they want to bring out a band and stuff like that. For 2015, in 2012, the registration fee at that time was $5,513. In 2013, the registration fee was $15,965.85. In 2014, the registration fee, and this is for bands just wanting to participate, so there is a registration fee because you need to know who these bands are, if they have to get a subvention, if they have to get prize monies. $18,335.35. That was in 2014. In 2015, the registration fee was $14,382.70, and in 2016, which was last year, the registration fee was $53,888.40. And the registration fee was increased because small bands, there were more bands than previously, and there were some small events taking place. And what the Spice Mask did was try to speak with those small promoters to see what they can do. And some of them gave you $100 or $200, but it was not anything that was organized. It was very ad hoc. And this is why we are here today to make some amendments. Mr. President, over the years, we have had a lot of problems with Spice Mask in terms of events that are being held on a yearly basis. When other promoters may have events on the same nights as Spice Mask is having events, what we have done over the past is to try and speak with those promoters to see how we can partner together, how they can give some support. Initially, some of them would say yes, but most of the time they don't. So that also causes some difficulties for Spice Mask operations. Mr. President, I must say that what we are doing here today is to make sure that our Spice Mask gets to a level that we are all proud of. We want to make sure that the events are being managed properly. We want to make sure that it's being staged properly. We will have it's done at a professional level. Only yesterday, I received an email from the Grenada Tourism Authority informing me that the Essence magazine, I'm certain everybody here knows about Essence magazine. It's an international magazine. Whenever I try to buy a copy of it. I've been reading it for as long as I can remember. And it featured Spice Mask in Essence magazine. So this is a reach that we use to really market the event. And it's the Tourism Authority and it's the Spice Mask Corporation that does it. This is what we do. And if we don't market it well, if we don't do what we're supposed to do, therefore people will not come to the destination. I want to say also, Mr. President, that we have been over the years, although I have shown the intake, but there are also we've been operating at a loss because of the, for instance, I'll just give you a breakdown. I will just mention briefly because I wouldn't want to take too much time. And I'm going to give one example, and that is the PAN. Okay, Pan, I love. It's part of a culture. It's important that we make sure that it continues and that we give all the support that is necessary to make sure that that Pan industry grows from strength to strength. However, over the years, we have seen that it has been not what it should be. And this is a very serious concern for us. In 2016, the total income, and that would be gate receipts and stuff like that, was $24,435. The total expenditure, which includes prize money, was $376,382. And this was a deficit of $351,947. This is very sad that at this day and age we are having events as Pan, and it's very difficult. People are not coming to the event, and it's just something that is wrong, and we are trying to work with the Pan Association to see what can be done. It must be done differently, because if you're doing something all the time and it's giving you the same results or even worse, you have to sit back and see what you can do to improve. The Pan Association has to understand that they have to work with us. The prize monies that we pay out to Pan is $243,000. This is what we pay out to Pan. The gate receipts, as I said, was $24,435. And it's not that you're giving out free tickets to everybody to come in free. These are people who are paid to come into the event, but this is the kind of revenue that we are taking. So we have to find ways in which we can improve. And I don't want to only talk about Pan. I can talk about other activities, because I don't want to give the impression that I'm talking only about Pan. I'm bashing Pan, not at all. I love Pan. I used to play at one time. I started to play when I was at Grand Save, and then I went into politics. I didn't have the time, and that's why I gave it up. I used to play bass. I'm certain you all are surprised that I love it. I love Pan. Okay, then the Marsh Gras is another activity that, in my opinion, as minister, I feel that there is need for us to do much more and for more persons to come out to the event. In 2016, the income for the Marsh Gras was $57,968, and those are gate receipts. And remember, in 2016, the chairman, the CEO of Spice Mars, in collaboration with myself and the board of Spice Mars, we felt that we had to put a halt on the number of complimentary tickets that we give out, because this is how you're not making the revenue, because everybody wants to come in for free. They want to bring 12 persons, 20 persons, but you can't run an organization like this, because you have expenses, and who is going to pay it? So the total income for the Marsh Gras was last year, and the Marsh Gras used to bring in a lot of revenue, I was told, some years ago, was $57,968. The prize monies and appearance fees was $175,000. So the total expenditure for the Marsh Gras for last year was $265,969. And so there was a loss again of $208,002. So you see, we are just, as I would say, kind of spinning top in mud, because you're not seeing the revenue, but it's a culture that must be kept alive. It's a culture that is important. In terms of the children's carnival frolic, the gate receipts were $49,374,000. Prize monies for that is not a lot, it's $14,900. The expenditure, and when I talk about expenditure, I include prize monies, the band music, the DJ, the judging expenses, and this is how it's incurred, because you have to make sure that you have security, you have to have the backup music, you have to pay for the stadium. Nothing is free. We have to pay for everything that goes there. Security, all of that has to be paid. We get a few dollars from the vendors who may have booths and stuff like that, but it is not what you think. I just want to make reference here now to Soca and Groovy Monarch, because again, you see thousands of people come out to the event. In 2016, we were able to bring in $466,885 as gate receipts that came in. That was the revenue from Soca and Groovy Monarch, because we do both of them together. The prize monies that were paid out, plus a parent's fee. So even if you didn't make it and you were on the stage, there is a parent's fee that we would pay to the artists. And that was, for Soca, we gave out $225,000. For Groovy, $104,000. So the total expenditure for prize monies and a parent's fee was $329,000. The total expenditure for the event was $643,084. So we had a small deficit of $176,199. So, I mean, considered it's not as bad as compared to the other shows. I'm saying all of this to say, Mr. President, that Spice Mass must become viable. Spice Mass must be operated as a business. And this is what we are started to do. We started the year before, as I indicated, we were able to get raise about 400 and something EC dollars from abroad. That was in 2015. So that helped to defray some of the expenses. Last year, we were not able to raise that kind of money because of other activities that were taking place. But so the expenditure had dropped somewhat. But we are not happy. We want to make sure that at the end of Spice Mass, this is what we have started to do for the past 2-3 years, is to pay out the prize money 1 week after and to make sure that we pay our bills. Because as of today, which is now 2017, there are still persons out there that we are owing monies to. And we are not happy. I know that at the Spice Mass Corporation, when you call them, they're not happy. Sometimes when you call, you may think that they have the money and they're not paid, but they really don't have the money. And this is why we have to find ways in which to raise money. One of the things that we are doing this year is to, on the 29th of this month, April, we are having a Caribbean United Queen Show here in Grenada at this location, at the Trade Center. And that is a fundraiser also to begin to raise money. So this is the first time we are trying it here, but we hope to do it on a yearly basis. So you have queens from all over the Caribbean coming to Grenada. And this is a fundraiser for Spice Mass so that it can help to defray some of the costs. In May, next month, they are going to New York, Spice Mass, a team going to New York, to work with a team in New York to raise funds again. They're having an activity there to raise some funds. So it's not like they're just sitting down there and saying, Lord God, what should we do? They realize that they have to, Spice Mass must go out there and raise the funds that are needed, so they're beginning to do this. So I can assure you and the people who are listening out there that Spice Mass is not just sitting down there and trying to just take from anyone. What we would like to see is that we can work collaboratively. There is a team approach that we can partner with promoters to make sure that at the end of the day, it's a win-win for all of us, because we know that each one of us benefit from Spice Mass. We know that we all love Spice Mass, and we want to make sure that this event, it is a premier event here on the island, and we want to make sure that every year it goes from strength to strength. As I speak, I know that we have been getting a lot of requests from persons abroad who wanted to come, wanted to carry it. People are saying the airfares are kind of too high, but they would like to come. So we have to do what is necessary, whether we market in April, on the 1st of May, a team again, we are going to Trinidad to market Spice Mass. We are going to launch it there. Again, over the years, we have seen an influx of people coming in from Trinidad. This is what we want to see, to make sure that they come in. Because when they come into the destination, the airports benefit, the vendors benefit, the boutiques benefit, the promoters benefit, the taxi drivers benefit, all of the various Grand Lake, Lime, Flow, they all benefit. Digicel, they all benefit from it. So it is a national event, and it does have a national impact. So what we need to do is to make sure that the standards are a very high standard, and that whatever we do at the end of the day, we are all proud to be Grenadian and to be associated with this national event. And this is why, Mr. President, today I am piloting this bill, this amendment, because if for those of you who have seen the bill from 2011, you would see that many of the wordings and situations that were there before continues. We have just made some amendments to it, and it's called the amendment bill. And the objective of these amendments are to improve and clarify the statement on the duties and powers of the corporation. So we want to bring clarity to that. You don't want it to be there and people are not too sure. To improve the system for grant of license to operate a carnival, festival, or activity with added restrictions. And this I will talk on later on. To revise the composition of the board, to provide for conformity with the Public Finance Management Act. This was not there before. The Public Finance Management Act was passed in 2015, and therefore we have to bring it into the Spice Mouse Corporation. So this is included here, to provide for the effective coordination with the Grenada Cultural Foundation. For those of you who would have known, for the past few years, we have been meeting, we have been having consultation after Spice Mouse, and what people are saying, what they are saying is, well, Spice Mouse need to work closely with the Cultural Foundation need to take over Spice Mouse, all sorts of things are being said. What we are doing now is putting the structures in place, and when I table this Cultural Foundation bill, I will talk about the role of the Cultural Foundation in all of this. The duties and powers of the corporation are listed in Clause 3. And basically, the current duties and powers are already there. It hasn't changed. What has changed is to coordinate all of the carnival festivals and activities. So now we are saying that Spice Mouse Corporation should coordinate all of the carnival festivals and activities. Duties and powers of the corporation is in Clause 3 of the amendment, and what we have done in 2D is to develop and implement marketing strategies to carnival and carnival festivals and activities. So we have added something that was not there before, given them the autonomy to go out there, to market, to grow, to do all that is necessary to make sure that the festival and activities are what it should be, and to organize, promote, conduct, and manage carnival shows. They have been doing this before, but it was not in the legislation, so we have included it. Duties and powers of the corporation continues under Clause 3. We have to managing vending at all carnival festivals or activities, including entering into contracts on terms and conditions, including of such fees as the board may determine. As you are aware, over the years we have done this, but it has not been in the law. So it's there because when you want to vend in an occasion, you go through again, and this is where these fees and so come from. Persons wanting to vend on the carnage, at the stadium, wherever there is an event of Spice Mouse, they go through them, they fill out the form, they charge them a very small fee, and then they have their events. So this is all going to be regularized now. Clause 4 deals with the license system that I talked about, and no person shall hold a carnival, festival, or activity in an area declared under Section 20 to be the location for a carnival, festival, or activity operated by the corporation or at any time during the carnival period. Currently, what it says is a person shall not hold a carnival, festival, or activity in an area declared under Section 20 to be the location for a carnival, festival, or activity operated by the corporation unless the person obtains a license from the board to do so. So it is there in the current legislation. What we have changed is it's at any time during the carnival period. It's not there. The system is under the licensing system is continued under Clause 6. Carnival, festival, or activity means a public event conducted during the carnival period. Clause 2 states that the carnival period means the period that commences on the date of the launch of carnival, which will be on Saturday, by the corporation, and ends on the Sunday after the second Tuesday in August. So it will start on Saturday, and it will end on the second Tuesday after August. licensing system continues. A person who promotes or conducts any carnival, festival, or activity in contravention of subsection 1, which I spoke about, is liable to a fine in the amount of 40% of the proceeds of the carnival, festival, or activity payable to the corporation no later than 7 days after the conclusion of the carnival, festival, or activity. This is here not that we want to get money from the people. What we want them to do is comply. So if everybody complies, there is no fee for the corporation in this regard because they would have complied. Where a person contravenes subsection 1 and fails to pay the fine under the subsection within the specified time, the person commits an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine not exceeding $50,000 or a term of imprisonment not exceeding 1 year both. And as I said before, this is here, but we are hoping that this will never have to come into play because everyone will comply and do what is necessary. A person who issues and discontinue the license system, because I think this is where the changes have occurred in this new amendment bill. A person who issues a publication in respect of a carnival, festival, or activity for which the person purports to be conducted and for which no license has been issued, that person can be charged $500 for each incident of the publication, which shall in no case exceed an aggregate of $50,000 as we have talked about. In terms of the license system, an application shall contain such particulars as shall be prescribed by the board. This is what was done before. An application under subsection 1 shall be in the form prescribed and shall be accompanied by a prescribed fee. And these fees will be discussed with the Cultural Foundation. The license system. Notwithstanding subsection 1, the board may consider an application made outside of the prescribed period if the board determines that the carnival, festival, or activity is likely to enhance carnival. So it means that there is flexibility. What needs to be done is consultation and information, and that is what is needed. No one is trying to prevent anyone from having activities because we know when people come to the destination for Spice Month, they want places to go. They want to have a great time. The private promoters do play a role. As a matter of fact, when this bill was passed in the House of Representatives, I met with the private promoters. They had some reservations, but as I said, this is the first step in terms of trying to see how we can improve. When Carnival is over, we are going to review all the changes that have been made, and then we would make recommendations for the future. In respect of an application under subsection 1, which I have talked about, the board, and I'm talking about the Spice Mask Board, may, as it seems fit, waive the requirement to pay any fee under this section or regulations made for the purposes of the section. So there, as I said, there is flexibility. These are some of the new conditions for the licensing system. The board shall attach the following conditions to every license grant to operate a carnival, festival, or activity for which an admission fee would be charged. 1 ticket shall be issued for each admission to the carnival, festival, or activity. No later than 7 days after the conclusion of the carnival, festival, or activity, the holder of the license shall pay to the corporation a fee amounting to 5% of the admission fee. No later than 7 days after the conclusion of the event, the holder of the license fee shall file returns in the prescribed form to account for the admission. We have a new condition here, which was not there before in the amendment, and it has to do with the licensing system. The board shall attach the following condition to every license granted to a person resident outside of Grenada. So we are taking into consideration persons wanting to have event who are resident outside of Grenada. The person shall pay a deposit as may be determined by the corporation, or the person shall have at least one guarantor resident in Grenada for the sum determined by the corporation. the person or an agent thereof shall be present in Grenada for the conduct of the carnival, festival, or activity, and the person or the agent thereof shall give an undertaking that all outstanding fees will be paid to the corporation before his or her departure. So we have looked at persons who may want to have an event, who is not in Grenada, who is outside of Grenada, but there are certain conditions that he must comply to in order for them to operate here. The license system, there is also an appeals clause to the license system, and this is in Clause 6. Clause 6 seeks to reposition subsection 7 to 13 of Section 5 as a new section, which is 6A. Provisions relate to the process of application for appeal against a decision. So if they are not happy with the decision that is made, you can appeal to the minister. If you're not happy with the decision of the minister that gave you, then there is a tribunal board that you can appeal to. So it tells you that it's nothing is in black and white. You can go to the highest level if you're not happy with what the decision was made. But just to let you know that once a decision is made by the tribunal, it is final. There is no way for you to go. A person to whom a license has been granted who contravenes a condition attached, because there will be condition attached to the license, commits an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine not exceeding, as we said earlier, 50,000 or to a term of imprisonment. So all we are saying here is that we would like people to comply. We would like to work together with the promoters, because Spice Mass, the promoters enhances the Spice Mass. The people, when they come here, they want to have a great time. We encourage it, and everyone, it's a win-win situation. So we will continue to work with them. We will continue to dialogue with them. This is the first time we are introducing this form of license. Let us see how it works. I know I have received WhatsApp, I've received email up to this morning with some recommendations, but I'm saying let us see how it works this time around, and then we can look at it going forward. And as I said, after Spice Mass, after August, they will review and see how best what needs to be done. And as we say, when we pass legislation here, it doesn't end. You can always amend, and that's what it's all about. Nothing remains stagnant. The composition of the board, we have made some changes to the board, and we have a representative of the National Lotteries Authority is on the board. We have a person qualified in the creative industry. We have a representative of the Ministry of Culture and the CEO of Spice Mass. So these are some of the changes that have been made to the board of Spice Mass. At this time, Mr. President, I think I have said as much as I would like to say at this time, and I would like to beg to move the second reading of the bill.
Thank you, Senator Hood. Ray Roberts.
Thank you, President. Madam Minister, through you, Mr. President, to Madam Minister, undoubtedly we in Labour see Carnival as one of the foremost activities in our country, and we are prepared to work with you to make it the best product it can. You know, there is no doubt about it, Carnival attracts thousands of people to Grenada to enjoy not just the natural beauty of Grenada, but the vast talent of our people in calypsos, designer display, and what have you. The bill, no doubt, Madam Minister, gives recognition to the value of the work of Spice Mass, and we could understand the changes that are being proposed here today, and I'm sure at the end of the day you have the numbers, you will certainly have your wishes. Repealing subsections 2 and 3 and providing replacement, giving more control to Spice Mass. Again, I can appreciate, because Carnival is dynamic. However, Mr. President, I want to draw to the Minister's attention and the government that some of what is written here, to me, could stifle creativity and entrepreneurship in Carnival. Entrepreneurship is what makes Carnival, to me, what it is. And I would think the best example we could perhaps point to is the Wagiti Corporation. That company organizes shows that are second to none. Even Spice Mass, a distance a second in terms of its professionalism and an organization. Mr. President, maybe we should just go through some of the pages. And I would want to start with page 7 and look at holding carnival festivals without a license. I quite agree there has to be a license. But, Mr. President, as you go down to 3 on that same page, the minister spoke up, it says the new parts. It says, and let me ask your permission to read it again, where a person contravenes subsection 1 and fails to pay the fine under subsection 2 within a specific time, the person commits an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine not exceeding $50,000 or a term of imprisonment not exceeding a year. Yes, I know it says not exceeding, so you could be charged $10,000, $5,000, or whatever. But that in itself is frightening because, Mr. President, you have to take into account entrepreneurs staging these carnival activities are not guaranteed success. It's a risk. I'm not in business. There's a businessman next to me, and I hope he speaks on the bill because clearly investment in carnival and things like that, it's a huge risk. I would think, yes, you need to have a license, but the numbers here, 50,000, it says a lot. And we have to take into account the possibility of a show of this nature not being successful. And upon that also, we talk about 5% of the intake, I suppose is on the gross, being paid to Spice Mass. Now I'm saying from the outset that Spice Mass must be paid something. They are the organizers, they are the government authority, so there must be some form of tax or whatever you want to call it, so that revenue can flow. But 5%, again, of the gross, what about if that show fails? I know it's your risk and you went into it, but we want to encourage the growth of carnival in Grenada. So we must value that. And then there is also VAT. I will assume VAT comes into that. So you have the government VAT to pay, and then you have 5% on your gross to pay to Spice Mass Corporation. I don't know if that is the greatest incentive to encourage young people or people in general to invest in carnival. So again, the minister made the point that the bill perhaps will be reviewed after this carnival. But this initial thing really sends to me a chilling message. I have had a little conversation with not many, but maybe about 3 or 4 of them I've spoken to. And that's their take, that this does not lend the sort of support that they're looking for. It could be a consequence because there are penalties stick to it. So if the show fails, you have to find the money. You may have to go to the bank. So there could be other ways to me that you could encourage carnival development without some of these harsh penalties. Then there is a section here, if we go to page 8, we talk about carnival license. A person who is desirous of holding a carnival festival or activity, he or she, I suppose, must make this application 2 months before. Now, I just want to draw a parallel here, and it speaks about a designating an area for carnival by the Spice Mass Corporation. Let's take Tantine or Granans, for example. They could be designated areas. We have schools within these areas that stage mini carnivals. This here does not say that they are excluded. So the question could be, are we going to penalize them? I don't think Spice Mass will do such, but the point I'm making here, that this is very broad. It does not exclude anyone. So perhaps in our review, we should think about excluding small organizations, because most of these things are community events and they are not meant to make profit. They are meant to keep communities active. So again, I know there had to be rules and regulations, but again, we could be drastic. Too drastic, actually. It says here that, and to me, that is a politics again. I don't know why we need this section here. If the board, in conjunction with the minister, is satisfied that an application is complete and the person making the application is eligible to operate a carnival, festival, or activity, it may grant the application. Again, if we have a competent board, and I assume it's going to be a competent board of business people, people who have proven themselves, why are we bringing the minister in? That again introduces unnecessary politics. And we know how Caribbean politics, the history of it tells us, it could be petty. You're perceived to be wherever you are, and you bring the minister into it. Why? You want to tell me that the board, chaired by a professional accountant, a professional manager, he has to go to the minister to Journeyflex to get some? I find that is really a government, a manipulation of a process. So to me, Madam Minister, to you, Madam Minister, through the President, I think that is totally unnecessary. I think that is dipping your hand much too far. I also want to express some concern when I look at the involvement of the diaspora, because that's how we call it, the people from abroad who come and organize the shows and so forth. Yes, again, I agree that they must in some way pay a contribution, whether you want to call it a tax or whatever, to be doing things, because, as I said again, you are the people organizing, you are the people managing the process. But to me, that again is, I don't see that as something that contributes to the process. You have to have a guarantee in Grenada. You must pay your bills before you go. And I agree with that. You must pay your bills before you go. And there's an undetermined fee. I mean, I suppose a Grenadian who is frequent here and who is part of Grenada society, loves Carnival, he would want to know beforehand what is that cost. So at least he could budget it. But a determined fee by the committee could mean anything. It could mean $1, it could mean 5,000, it could mean $1 million. I think, to me, that is too loose again. And we want the diaspora to be involved in just about every aspect of Grenadian life. I believe each one of us here have family members who live out there, but really their heart and soul are in Grenada. So to me, we need to think over that part. Because yes, I'm saying you need to put some levy on them, but it must be reasonable. And I'm assuming that you're going to be reasonable, but you could be unreasonable too, because no number is there. It could be anything you decide to do, and you may very well evaluate depending on your perception of that person. So I can't see any great value in having this thing so loose. I'm also concerned, and I believe it is necessary that we look at, yes, the board has a lot of government appointees, and to me it's an okay balance, but I would love to have seen a criteria for some of these people there. To me, the Mars Band Association, that tells the criteria. The Steel Band Association, it tells the criteria. A businessman and financial manager, a human resources manager, marketing and advertising. Many of us call ourselves marketing and advertising, and perhaps it is a perception. Are we qualified to do it or not? Public relations, a creative industry. As I said, the balance looks okay, but I would have loved to see something more specific written here. Minister, I share your opinion on the cost of Carnival, because I know the government on a yearly basis puts out large sums of money, and there's this growing demand every year from mass men and Carnival people in general for bigger price money and so forth. And I go to some of the shows, and clearly the cost has to be absorbed by government, because the show can't pay for itself. So I agree with you, there has to be a way to finance it, but we cannot ignore it that without entrepreneurship involved in Carnival, people who will take risks, and we have to create the incentives for these guys, I believe you will be doing more damage to yourself than good. I mean, yes, we have 20-something taxes that we impose that we could complete our 3-year IMF program, and clearly we understood why we had to do it. You can deny it if you wish, but you misspend money between 95 and 99 with all kind of investment, and you see what the end result was. I am saying to you that you can't have the same apply to masked men and carnival people, because when I read what you have here, it may sound simple, and I know you are genuine. I have no doubt about your genuineness. As I said to you, I value you as perhaps the best tourism minister we have had in the last 20 or so years. But there is no doubt, I think you need to revisit that bill and involve more of the mass players, more of the people involved in carnival. One of the leading carnival persons said to me, he said, Ray, I think this bill is aimed at people like me. People just believe I'm making a lot of money and they're looking for a way just to reduce me. And if people have that feeling, and some of the things in that bill, we could say it's emotion or not. Some of the things in that bill, I don't see how it helped a business. I don't see how it helped carnival, which is a business. It imposes stiff penalties. Yes, the judge or whoever it is may not do it, but the point I'm making, it says $50,000, you could be fined that amount. So, Madam Minister, through you, through the President, I want to wish the government well in implementing this bill, but above all, I certainly hope that this bill can be reviewed in the quickest time. I know in Grenada we talk about consultation, but we do consultation perhaps in many cases selectively, and that's why we end up with things like that. I still believe that, well, speaking to some of the people who are really involved, they said to me the first time they really got an insight of the bill was when it was debated in the upper house, or no, rather the lower house. I remember the president making a statement not too long ago. In fact, when he took office, that perhaps we should do a white paper, perhaps we should do a whatever color paper, circulate things like that to the wider community, so people of all strata, people of all ability, can contribute to the process. I only saw this bill when it went to the lower house. So I had very little time to engage the wider trade union movement, and as you know, workers are involved in carnival. People with the creative arts. So really and truly, I would hope through you, Mr. President, the leader of government business, remember what you said some time ago, and begin to impose that aspect of it on our contribution to a national debate. That is a green paper, a red paper, or whatever paper you choose to call it. So people can be more actively involved. It will not take away from the process. It will only enhance the process. And I trust that, Madam Minister, it shall not fall on deaf ear. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Roberts. The Honorable Peter David.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I just realized to support this. I remember my old friend, Senator Ali Gill, when he was Minister of Tourism, Minister of Culture, sorry. I know he had an excellent relationship. In fact, his favorite minister was Minister Hood, and they had an excellent relationship. And he always agonized about carnival and what needs to be done. You know, he was a very dynamic culture minister himself, and I think this was his doing. When this bill was passed, it was his doing. And he, at the time, indicated that this is a work in progress. And I think as the member representative for Labour indicates, it's something that's dynamic, it's going to change. It's, as the minister indicated when she started, it's an attempt to treat carnival as a business. But here's the dilemma. There's a limit to which you can do that, because firstly, the revenue must not only be determined by what you receive at the gates, because remember, as you yourself indicated, Madam Minister, there's the vendors, the taxi drivers, the tourism, the hoteliers, the small guest houses, the persons who sell in the market. They all benefit from carnival. So in a sense, Madam Minister, I'm saying that while we want to treat it on strict business terms, profit and loss, You have to really determine, your profit is more widely determined by your gate receipts. And I think it's a point made last week by my learned friend, the minister, the member for representing the business community, that these things, what he called at the time the intangibles, even PAN, for example, one can say, listen, I mean, this is an argument on strict business terms to just abolish the panorama. But can we do that? Can we measure our culture simply in terms of profit and loss? I think not, because PAN is part of our culture, and we must try to find ways to develop PAN. I mean, I'm a lover of PAN myself. I grew up around PAN, but we need to, and I know you, Mr. President, yourself, you lived around PAN, and we all enjoyed PAN. So we have to see the investment, treat the monies going into Carnival as an investment in our culture, in our communities, in our history, and also the spin-off that comes to all our vendors. I mean, you can't get flights into Grenada these days around Carnival. It means that a lot of money is coming into the country. It's similar to the athletic meet we had the other day. It's something that we invest in for the wider benefit of the community. So I want to praise the minister for trying to, as much as possible, treat it like a business, but ask that we beware of treating it simply on the strict business terms without looking at the wider question of what really must be determined to be a profit, as it were. With respect to some of the comments, I want to express my support for the attempts. It's not going to be easy, because, it's as some people say, there are other priorities. Do we need to spend $1 million on Carnival while we have other things we need to do? We need to have a national discussion about Carnival. And I think something that was said some time ago too by my friend Senator Gill when he was here, that I'm not sure if it was done, Minister, but an assessment of the value of Carnival to the country. And I think that will help us to determine how much we spend and what we get out of it. These things need to be done, so it will form part, as the member for Labour said, it forms part of the discussion about the value of Carnival to our country. Not simply just having fun, but the economic value of Carnival to the country. That will help us to determine whether or not we are spending good money or spending bad money. With respect to a couple of things raised by my friend, with respect to the $50,000 fine, of course, you made the point, but you skirted the point. It's a $50,000 maximum penalty, and I want to applaud them for putting a maximum penalty on it, fine on it, because were there not a maximum, the judges and magistrates can go above that. I think a $50,000 maximum is not unreasonable, because the violation might be so serious that the person's profitability goes way above $50,000. So I really do not believe that we need to sound any alarms, and it must not be said out there that you're charging people $50,000. It says that the magistrate or the judge, whoever it is, can impose a maximum. It means that they can be reprimanded and discharged. For example, it's a first offense. If it's not a serious offense, they can be reprimanded, which means you just slap on the wrist and they go home, or they can be charged $5,000, $2,000, $1,000. But those are at the low end of the scale. It gives the magistrate a discretion to determine, based on the seriousness they're seeing in front of them, to go to the top $50,000 or go to the bottom, which is just a reprimand and discharge, which is really nothing of consequence. So I think that's fine. I see no difficulty with it. It's not a $50,000 fine. It's a maximum possibility of $50,000 fine. And that only comes where persons are repeated offenders, and 3 and 4 times every year you're telling them don't do it and they keep doing it. You can only charge them $50,000 even if they do it 10 times, which is quite lenient in my view. You said if the project fails. Now, that's a simple mathematical formula. It says a percentage of 5%. 5% of 0, I think, is 0. So if the profitability is $1 million, then it's 5% of $1 million. If it's 0 or there's a loss, it's 5% of the loss, which makes it 0. So I don't see the alarm that the 5% is a big amount. And you said if it fails, you don't pay. And of course, member, if nobody wants to pay anything really. But anyway, let's go on to the other one. The minister, the role of the minister. I don't know why there's always this phobia about ministers getting involved. You know, a government is elected every 5 years, and they appoint ministers to oversee the operations of the government. The ministers must have a role in many of these things. It's as if persons are saying, listen, elect the government, elect the ministers, but turn over the running of the government to somebody else. The government and the administration of the society is the responsibility of the government. And therefore, if at the end of the 5-year term you make a mess of things, it is the ministers and the MPs who take responsibility. So I'm just making a general point about phobia that seems to be entering the discussion that ministers must never be involved in governance. Ministers are elected, or government is elected to run the show. If at the end of 5 years they make a mess of things, then they are voted out. But in a 5-year period, we must give the ministers a role. And I'm not phobic about giving ministers a role. Our society is open and democratic enough. Our media is free enough. Our society's discourse is active enough to take care of any problems that may arise. This is not a closed society, an undemocratic society. It's a very open society. In fact, you listen to the radio every day. The kinds of things that are said on radio, coming so close to libel sometimes makes me, amazed at the freeness of our discussion. Years ago, it wasn't like that. These days, you put on the radio every morning, and man cussing, man, woman cussing, man cussing. Everybody, the freedom of the press is something that we celebrate. And I think there's that freedom that allows persons to criticize ministers if they're making mistakes. So I don't think we should be all phobic and scared that ministers have a job and doing their job. I think, in fact, we should encourage that. With respect to the diaspora, I agree with my friend. The diaspora needs to play an active role, but I'm not worried about the diaspora's role in terms of businessmen alone. I think we must encourage them to come, and I don't see any fetter if you say to them you need somebody in Grenada, because you need to have some level of control. If, for example, somebody stays in America and says, I want to book something. So I book it in Grenada, and then I say, yes, I'm doing it, and I don't show up. There's no deposit that you can take away. You need somebody in the country to stand as a surety in the event that there's an attempt to breach or to break that contract. So, again, nothing. If you fulfill the contract, you have nothing to worry about. With respect to more specific criteria, I don't know how more specific you can get. I mean, unless you want to give age and date of birth and so on. I mean, you said somebody from the Grenada Mass Bands Association. I don't know how specific you want to say how tall or short that person can be. You can't do that. Grenada Steel Bands Association, the Calypso Fraternity, Business and Financial Management, Human Marketing and Advertising. In fact, I think it is quite specific. Of course, I agree that there are things that would need to be discussed. One thing I want to agree with the member on is this, that there should be continued discussions after the carnival. I think the minister indicated that. Because, one of the things I don't understand, and I want to say here, I don't understand why after every carnival, there seems to be always a problem and a problem. Maybe this is an attempt, and the member, I agree with the member also, that this minister is maybe the best tourism minister we've had in the country since last few decades. And I say that knowing that I too was once a tourism minister. And I give her the credit for being the best tourism minister. In fact, I remember sometimes visiting, and I always tell her this, going to the cruise activities in Florida, and they always ask me, where's Brenda Hood? Where's Brenda Hood? Because she did a fine job as tourism minister. And I think she's doing well. I think what she's doing here and what the board is doing here what the ministry is doing here is in the interest. But I agree with the member when he says that we must have ongoing discussions. The culture is very deep in the DNA of many people in this country. There will always be persons who disagree. The question is, how do we incorporate that discussion? How do we create an avenue to ensure that all of our people are involved in the discussion about Carnival, discussion about culture, and discussions about how do we balance our expenditure in this regard. Thank you, Mr. President.
Christopher Diari, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I didn't plan to speak much on this bill because, Mr. President, I'm acutely aware that when I looked at the bill, I was of the opinion that it was trying to correct administrative weaknesses and improve the efficiency of Spice-Mars Corporation. Carnival is traditionally a controversial staging of an event, and our history says that we have had many issues with the staging of events, competing events, problems with Calypso, problems with mass, problems with steel band, and it continues. And then at the end of it, the government has to put in hundreds of thousands of dollars to make it viable and to pay bills. And as our colleague senator said in the presentation of our bills, you can't even pay the outstanding bills yet. We still have, she said, $800,000, and I don't know if that figure has been broken down, but we have issues, obviously, financially. From where we stand in the private sector, Mr. President, I saw this as these amendments as creating more efficiency for Spice-Mars Corporation. Spice-Mars Corporation have been said in the past to have no teeth in order for them to execute the event and to deal with certain issues, one being competing events from promoters that come to stage the events around Carnival time, and that has been a controversial thing in the last 2-3 carnivals. People coming and vying for dates close to Carnival and competing with events and piggybacking off the fact that this is a national event that's marketed wide and far, and a lot of people come in to see the events. You could argue that we probably don't have enough events, the quality of the events that is put on by Spice-Mars Corporation, and those arguments are valid to some extent. But at the end of the day, I think we have to give Spice-Mars Corporation the teeth and improve the efficiency of the administration of the event to the point where they can actually achieve some financial independence down the road. And I look at these amendments from that point of view. I hear the concerns that my colleague from Labour have on the other side. I don't see the quantum for penalties as an issue. As colleague friend said, there's a maximum. The judge or the magistrate, whoever is adjudicating, could go from 0 to 50. That is the fact. But there must be a penalty and some sort of figure to deter people from not wanting to follow the right policies and procedures as set out and as now going to be passed into law to give Spice-Mars Corporation the kind of flexibility and freedom to do the things they ought to do. So from where we sit, I believe that these amendments will help. I don't think they're perfect, and we have the opportunity to tinker with them as we go forward, because Carnival continues to evolve and things continue to change. There isn't a Carnival association within this Caribbean region, and probably far and further beyond, that doesn't have problems. Trinidad is our greatest example in the region, and Trinidad now is having a lot of issues with financing it. Government don't have money to give them anymore. They're trying to look at various other means in which they could improve and improve the efficiency in collections and charging of fees and licenses and so on. So it's a constantly evolving thing, and I see the move that's being made here for the amendment as a positive one that we should take from the point of view of hoping that we could improve what we do at Spice-Mars Corporation and giving the corporation the kind of teeth that they need. They really do need that kind of teeth. A lot of past chairmen that have run Carnival, when you talk to them, they'll tell you they are so handcuffed and limited by what they can do and what they cannot do. One of the big things that we keep fighting is television rights for our Carnival event and how we charge and what we do and how we can maximize that. That is a big issue. Spice-Mars Corporation have been struggling with that. They've been struggling with private sector involvement in terms of, who could sponsor and what could sponsor, I think it gives them some clarity. And Mr. President, from where we sit in the private sector, we want to support and show that and hope that as we make these amendments, the corporation will be able to better apply and do what it has to do. Thank you.
Stan Gawi.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise to give support to the second reading of the amendment that is before us this morning, the bill. And chiefly to say that if this entity, SpiceMass, fails in its promotion, fails in its execution of the events guarded or put on during that 2-week period, and there is a financial loss, ultimately the state is responsible, and obviously the people will have to pay for that. The people are the ones who would have to make the contribution towards meeting that loss. But it is important to note, Mr. President, that with all that I've heard this morning in terms of the presentation from my colleague senator, it's an issue to ensure that SpiceMass is run in an effective and efficient manner to ensure that the objective of this festivity that is put on by the country is achieved. What we have to be reminded is that this is an event that is put on by SpiceMass Corporation. Therefore, they have the copyright power. And we understand as the direction the world is taking as it relates to copyrighted material. They create an environment to have this activity. And what we have realized, people piggyback on it and put on massive shows competing with the main organizer, SpiceMass, and thus rendering them to be in financial loss. It is fair and proper. If you want to organize an event within the period SpiceMass established or has its events, you must be licensed by them. And in so doing, you must pay a contribution, a fee to ensure that SpiceMass doesn't get the sticky end of the stick. So I support this. Because if we don't, as I've said before, it will rebound on the people having to come up with the subvention. Government is contributing $700,000 annually as the senator would have disclosed. If there is a loss, government obviously would have to increase that. And as I've said before, the people have to pay for it. But I just want to address one other issue that was raised by the labor representative. And he was talking about, and I coin it fake news. You know, President Trump came up with this some time ago during the campaign in the United States. And he talked about fake news, and people kind of laugh at him and say, what are you talking about? Now the world realizes, yes, a lot of fake news is going on. About 2 months ago, Senator Roberts and I had a discourse, a debate online, where he said the government introduced some 28 new taxes and levies on the backs of the Grenadian people. And I said to him, Senator, you know better than that. But in as much as you said it to the world, just name one of these new taxes and levies that the government would have introduced. And after about, I think, 2 days, he came back and he said, well, he's not paying income tax. And I said, but you know better than that. Income tax has been there for the longest while. It is not right, Senator Roberts, Mr. President, through you, to be saying to this world that this government has introduced some 28 new taxes and levies on the backs of Grenadian people. This is fake news. And it's high time that you correct that. Mr. President, I want to, as I said before, give my support to the second reading of this bill.
Mr. President, I too want to stand in support of this bill. I think if our government, our country is supporting our cultural activities to such a great extent, nearly $1 million, specifically $700,000, that is what is given up front. But we know that, those who are performing, they sometimes ask for more every year, and so government has to, make further contributions. I think in light of this, if we have a bill coming to this House that asks for better, efficiency, that asks for payments on time, that makes it clear when persons have time to pay, for license, for having activities during our cultural event that can bring them so much money. Like I heard, maybe they can make up to $50,000 profit based on the activity that they're having. I would like to, support this bill 100% to ensure that, everyone, all who are applying for license, comply with all our regulations, that they pay the fees that are requested, so that, SpiceMass can actually survive. We depend on it. It brings great revenues to our country every year. We know thousands of our people in the diaspora, they come back home. We have tourists visiting the island. And now that we've had, races like our Invitational, now that we've had such great credit ratings throughout the world, we know that Grenada is, clearly advertising itself. More people will be coming. And we want to ensure that when they come, the monies that they spend, get back into SpiceMass in some way or another. And we are fully aware that some of these events, activities that are held by, some of the promoters compete with SpiceMass. And so there are many of our cultural activities that actually suffer. And, few people attend some of those events, in light of the fact that other promoters have maybe on those nights or those times activities that may be more attracting to some of our young people and those who want to take part in it. And so I want to ensure, as a member of this House, that we all support this bill in order to assist government in maintaining this very important cultural activity, so that SpiceMass can offset its costs at some point or another. So whatever support that we can give to this bill, I would like to encourage everyone to do such. Thank you.
Simon Steele.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too want to lend my support to the amendments that are being presented before this House. I'll keep my comments very brief, but from the comments on both sides of the aisle, I think there is the general consensus, there is a common view that we all recognize the significant value that SpiceMass has, not only in terms of our own cultural development and our own cultural identity, but also from an economic standpoint. There is also agreement that changes are required to the legislation, notwithstanding the comments from Senator representing Labour with one or two little barbs within that, but general agreement that there is a need for us to relook at the finances. It does need to be run with business minds, again, notwithstanding those intangibles that need to be protected within that, but it also needs to make financial sense. And once there is enough to go around, once there is sufficient investment from all parties, that the SpiceMass Corporation and what it is asking for, that it can balance its books better, which will ensure that the necessary attention, the necessary resources are available to reinvest in the development of Carnival. So there is agreement that that needs to be looked at, and the approach that has been taken with the amendments that are before us, through consultation with all of the promoters, with stakeholders, to try and find that balance of not overburdening, but all the same put in measures in place that will bring greater equity to the relationship. So that is agreed. It is agreed that whatever is put in place should be fair on all sides. And whether it is the fee structures that are put in place, and the important point that with the licensing fee, it is a percentage of receipts. So if there is nothing to receive, as was articulated, there will be nothing to return. And there is a penalty structure in place which is to deter some of those actions that have hindered the development and the good organization, the strong management of Carnival. And ultimately, this is a work in progress, Mr. President. It is subject to change. It will evolve as Carnival evolves. So this will be put in place for this upcoming Spice Mass, and it will be reviewed after the festival, and it will be a constant review process to ensure that what is put in place is relevant at that time, and there is fairness and there is equity in what is being presented. So, Mr. President, this is work in progress. I think the approach that has been taken, this inclusive approach, is the right approach and will enable that evolutionary process to take place as we go through this year's Carnival and carnivals in the future. So once again, Mr. President, I lend my support to the amendments that are put before this House. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I just want to arise to say that I have listened to both sides, to their comments and suggestions, and want to assure the Senate that this positive suggestions made will be considered in the future. As I said, every year after Spice Mass, consultations are made, and we do get recommendations from persons. And I said this document in front of us here today, this amendment to Spice Mass Corporation, is a work in progress, and it will be constantly reviewed. But I must also say that over the years, the government of Grenada have given support to promoters, to mass bands, in the form of concessions, in the form of the waiver of work permits. All of those things we do every year. They come through me, or they come through the Ministry of Labor. So it's not that we are trying to sideline anyone. We understand the importance of events, cultural events towards the development, towards the economy. And government is committed and will continue to give full support. But at the same time, we need to have regulations. We need to have structures in place whereby Spice Mass can get the fleet that they were missing, and they have been missing for so long. So, Mr. President, at this time, I would want to move that the bill be read a second time.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill, Spice Mass Corporation Amendment Bill 2017, be read a second time. All those who have that opinion say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Spice Mass Corporation Amendment Bill 2017.
Senator, the Honorable Brenda Hood.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the Senate resolve itself into a committee of the whole Senate to consider the bill clause by clause.
Honorable members, the question to be considered is that the House resolves itself into a committee of the whole House to consider the bill clause by clause. Those who have that opinion say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary opinion, say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Honourable members, the House now resolves into a committee to consider the entire bill clause by clause.
Clause 2, amendment of Section 2 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 2, amendment of Section 2 of Principal Act, forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do indeed have it.
Clause 3, amendment to Section 4 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question to be considered is that Clause 3, amendment to Section 4 of Principal Act, forms part of this bill. Those who have that opinion say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Clause 4, amendment to Section 5 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is, Clause 4, amendment to Section 5 of Principal Act, forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Clause 5, insertion of new Section 6A to Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 5, insertion of new Section 6, the Principal Act, forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Clause 6, insertion of new Section 6A to Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question to be considered is Clause 6, insertion of new Section 6A, the Principal Act, forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Clause 7, amendment to Section 7 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 7, amendment to Section 7 of the Principal Act, forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Clause 8, amendment to Section 13 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 8, amendment to Section 13 of Principal Act, forms part of the bill. All those who are of that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Clause 9, repeal of Part 3.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 9, repeal of Part 3, forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do indeed have it.
Clause 10, insertion of new Section 22 to Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 10, insertion of new Section 22 to Principal Act, forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do indeed have it.
Clause 11, insertion of new Section 23 to Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question to be considered is Clause 11, insertion of new Section 23 to Principal Act, forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do indeed have it.
Clause 12, insertion of new Section 24 to Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question to be considered is Clause 12, insertion of new Section 24 to Principal Act. All those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. Those who have contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Clause 13, amendment to Section 37 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question to be considered is Clause 13, amendment to Section 37 of the Principal Act. All those who are of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do indeed have it.
Clause 1, short title and commencement.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 1, short title and commencement, forms part of this Act. All those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion, say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do in fact have it. Senator Hood.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that the Senate resumes and the chairman of the committee reports progress on the bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the Senate resumes and the chairman of the committee reports progress on the bill. As many of that opinion, say aye. To the contrary opinion, say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Honorable members, the Senate now resumes. Honorable members, I have to report committee of the whole Senate and passed without amendment. Senator, the Honorable Brenda Hood.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the chairman's report be adopted.
Resultingly, honorable members, the question is that the chairman's report be adopted. Those who have that opinion say aye.
Aye.
The contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Senator Hood.
Mr. President, I beg to move the third reading of the bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill be ready third time. Honorable members, the question is that the bill be ready third time and passed. All those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do indeed have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Spice Mass Corporation Amendment Bill 2017.
Senator, the Honorable Brenda Hood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. President, I beg to move the first reading of a bill for an act shortly entitled Cultural Corporation Bill 2017.
An act to provide for the establishment of a cultural foundation for Grenada and for matters connected therewith, shortly entitled Cultural Corporations Bill 2017.
Senator, the Honorable Brenda Hood.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the relevant standing order of the Senate be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all its stages at this sitting.
Honorable members, the question is that the relevant standing orders of the Senate be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all of its stages at this sitting. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. The contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Senator Hood.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I beg to move the second reading of the bill.
Honorable members, the question proposed is the bill be read a second time.
Mr. President, this Cultural Cooperation Bill of 2017 seeks to repeal the Grenada Cultural Foundation and establish the Grenada Cultural Foundation, regulating the general affairs of the Cultural Corporation and ensuring cooperations with the Foundation and other cultural corporations and management committees for public festivals. The Grenada Cultural Foundation was established in 1998 by the Grenada Cultural Foundation Act Cap 128E, and the Spice Mass Corporation was established in 2011. Over the years since 1998, Mr. President, the Cultural Foundation has been responsible for all of the cultural activities throughout the length and breadth of this country. We believe that the time has come for us to amend the bill to make sure that it falls in line in terms of the preservation of our culture. I'm happy also that we are making this amendment this month, because April is considered the Heritage Month, and this all boils into a cultural heritage and all that is necessary for the preservation, because as it says, if we do not know our culture, if we do not know where we are coming from, we are not able to preserve it. I'm happy that we are able to come here today to amend the Cultural Cooperation Bill so that we will have other corporations that will fall under this bill. The objective of the bill is to reestablish the Grenada Cultural Foundation with improved functions and powers. It's also to establish the concept cultural corporations. This is new and designates specific statutory bodies and cultural corporations to encourage coordination among cultural corporations and to cure any inconsistency with the Public Finance Management Act of 2015 and the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property Act 2013 in respect of acts establishing cultural corporations. I did mention this section when I was presenting the Spice Mass, but what you will find, the statutory bodies that will be falling under the Cultural Corporation, Mr. President, they will have to comply with this section, with the Public Finance Management Act of 2015 and the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property Act of 2013. The statutory bodies that will fall under this Cultural Corporation Bill are Spice Mass Corporation, which was established, Spice Mass Corporation Act of 2011, Carriacou and Petite Martinique Festival Board established by the Carriacou and Petite Martinique Festival Act of 2015, the National Trust established by the National Trust Act, Chapter 207, and the Grenada National Museum, which would be established by the Grenada National Museum Bill of 2017 upon enactment. Mr. President, the Cultural Foundation at this point in time, they are responsible for various activities to make sure that the culture of our country are promoted, to make sure that it's preserved, to make sure that they go out there and work in the various communities with the various community organizations to provide training and development, to assist wherever possible. What we have found over the years, Mr. President, that many of the times when the Cultural Foundation are supposed to be out there doing their work, sometimes they don't have the staff. And so what we will be doing at this point in time is structuring the Cultural Foundation so they also will have oversight of all of these other corporations. And when I say oversight, it means reports, quarterly reports that has to be sent to the ministry and the minister. The Cultural Foundation will also have copies of those reports. They will know what is happening, because ever so often I get reports from the Cultural Foundation stating, well, all of these cultural activities are happening in the country and we don't know what is happening. The Cultural Foundation do have a website. They're able to promote all of the cultural activities. They are able to put it on their site. And what we are doing is making sure everything is done in a very organized way. We have made some changes also to the board of the Cultural Foundation, which I will mention lately, but I believe this is the right thing to do. As you know, Mr. President, the National Trust, it was established in 1967, but really, it functions. I know it gets a subvention from government through the Ministry of Education, I've been told, but we really don't know what is happening with the National Trust. We don't know what is taking place. The Cultural Foundation, of which I'm the minister responsible, Spice Mass Corporation, Carriacou and Petite Martinique Festivals Board, we do have a representative on the Cultural Foundation right now. The role of the foundation has become unclear, as I've said to you before, and therefore there is need for coordination within the other cultural entities. And they have tried, but it has been difficult. So putting this changes together, this legislation together, we believe that this is one way of them all working together for one cause. Because at the end of the day is what can you do to preserve our culture. Cultural cooperation means a body corporate designated as a cultural corporation under Section 611 and Schedule 2 and includes the foundation. And as I said before, designated cultural corporations will be the Grenada Cultural Foundation, Spice Mass Corporation, Carriacou and Petite Martinique Festival Board, Grenada National Museum, and the Grenada National Trust. The Ministry may by order, subject to negative resolution, amend Schedule 2 to add or remove a statutory body to or from the list of cultural corporations for the purposes of this Act. The objectives and the functions of the Foundation are to assist in the formulation of a national cultural policy. This has been done already. What has to be done at this point in time is to make sure that it's implemented effectively, stimulate, develop, and promote cultural and artistic capabilities and expressions of the Grenadian people. We are being very specific now in terms of what they're supposed to do, provide the necessary managerial and organizational infrastructure for the efficient and effective development, presentation, and marketing of Grenada's cultural industries and products. Develop, maintain, and manage all cultural facilities and equipment provided for by the government. Monitor activities of other cultural corporations, including public festivals and the annual Carnival Festival, to make them viable national, cultural, and commercial enterprises. What we are asking the Cultural Foundation to do is to give their input, to give their suggestions, to make sure that the standards are what it should be. It's like anyone who goes into their website, they should know what is happening when they go into the Cultural Foundation website. They should know what activities are taking place. And the Cultural Foundation must work closely with all of these other bodies to make sure our culture is preserved and protected. They need to organize and produce other festivals, celebration events, assist in the setting up of a cultural information system, facilitate ongoing research and documentation of cultural history of Grenada with the objective of preserving and conserving the cultural heritage. Provide the necessary support and facilities to assist persons interested in the development of the cultural expressions. As I said before, throughout the length and breadth of our country, we do have community groups that need support, that needs guidance. The Cultural Foundation is now mandated. They were supposed to do this in the past, but as minister, I didn't think that they were doing as much as they should. So now the mandate is there that they have to work closely with all of these organizations out there. And I believe by doing this, we will find that our culture will be protected and preserved. Because if we do not preserve and protect our culture, 10 years or 5 years down the road, we all will be disappointed with what will happen. The board of the foundation includes this time is the Grenada Tourism Authority. There is a member from the Spice Moss Corporation will be on the Cultural Foundation, Cultural Corporation, Grenada Conference of Churches, the Creative Industry, the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Finance, representative of the Ministry of Youth or Sport, Caracal Petit Martinique Festival Board, because it's important for us to know what is taking place in our sister isle, Chief Cultural Officer, other entities including cultural corporations and management committees of public festivals. So we want to make sure that we have the right people sitting on these boards. The Cultural Corporation Bill makes consideration for a uniform financial provisions for cultural corporations. Funds and resources is in clause 13. It talks about funds and resources, investments of fund, procurement of goods and services, so they can go out there and they can purchase, they can borrow, they have the power to borrow, it's in clause 16. Guaranteeing of borrowing, clause 17, which is government. They have a reserve fund. Right now, they do have a reserve fund. They have a few dollars in this fund now. It's right here. Accounts and audit, the books must be audited. Express application of Part 2, taking precedence over the clause. Exemption, they are exempting, all of the cultural corporations are exempting from stamp duty, import duties, and other charges. They will have to report to the minister and the foundation. The membership of the board must be published in the Gazette. So people, it's in clause 24. This was not done before. The minutes has to be available in case there is need to take it into the public domain or you have to go to court. The minutes has to be documented. Summary offenses related to cultural corporation penalty. So if a corporation do not do what they're supposed to do, there are summary offenses. what we are saying here, Mr. President, is that we want to make sure that our cultural cooperation is at a standard that we all can be proud of, and that from year to year, in the future, the cultural cooperation will go from strength to strength, and there will be synergy among all of the various corporations. At this point in time, Mr. President, I wish to beg to move the second reading of the bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill be read a second time. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Senator, the Honorable Raymond Roberts.
Thank you again, Mr. President. Mr. President, Labour has some concerns with the bill as presented by the Minister, but that does not negate our support for an institution of this nature in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. Mr. President, the bill, from our assessment, is to ensure management of one of the fastest and creative areas of Grenadian life. So we are certainly totally behind the Minister and the government in this institution formation. Labour endorses the need for that kind of structure. It creates an opportunity or opportunities for people in all areas of art, Calypso, Steel Band, and the further development of the institutions that we heard the Minister mention, the National Trust, the Carriacou Development Cultural Committee, and all the others that are in Grenada. The four parts of the bill, I could certainly associate myself with much of what is said there, but Mr. President, I wish to draw some attention to the structure of the board. And I'm going there again because it's been something we in the Labour movement have often championed. My predecessor championed it, and I'm championing it again. The structure of these boards leave much to be desired. We strongly believe that boards are best when social partners are an integral part. And we in Labour have been invited to serve on numerous boards in Grenada. We, and the evidence will prove us right, have always chosen people who are equipped with that skill to serve on the board. We are not known for willy-nilly. Now, Mr. President, as I look at this board, I don't want to take away from anybody, but except the Conference of Churches, all the other members are state-selected representation. SpiceMass Corporation is a state board, so the representative come from there. The creative art industry, well, let me just take that back. Except Conference of Churches and the creative industry, all the other members come from government-selected institutions. The Ministry of Education, it's the government. The Ministry of Finance is the government. The Ministry of Youth is the government. Carriacou and Petite Martinique Festival bands. The Chief Cultural Officer, that's also the government. I am saying there are entities, but entities appointed by the government. I am saying that there is no reason why an institution, a social institution, good track record as the Willie Redhead Foundation, ought not to be on this. I mean, the people who are in this institution are foremost in Grenada's culture. Let's take a gentleman as Mr. De Lamotte, 85. He recently gave all his artifacts and what have you to the museum. You can't ignore 55, 60 years of a person loving something like that. So I'm saying the Willie Redhead Foundation, those are the people who are in it. And we should value the years and their passion for things like that. It will enhance the cultural foundation. I agree that the ministries must have representation, but what I am asking for is a balance. I'm not taking away from the government. The NIS, I like to use it. It is the most perfect institution produced by the PRG. If nothing else we got from the PRG, we got an example of strength, dynamism, and tripartism. two unions, 2 employers, 3 government. None by themselves can make a unilateral decision. They must depend on each other. And that's why that institution has been the top institution, the model, not just in Grenada, in the Caribbean. The ILO tells you that. Everybody who comes here tells you it is the model institution. Why governments, including this government, can't see the wisdom in that? Why? I can't understand it. And we get up and we defend it, saying that we're trying to take away from the minister. Nobody's taking away anything from any minister. The minister is ultimately in charge. The government is ultimately in charge. But you can't have institution like that and expect it to work well. My colleague here sat and spoke and made mention that some of the statutory bodies have people who show up, don't ask a question, don't say anything, and that's it. They just show up because they're appointed. And not only this government, all the other governments have done it. And I have served on board where this has occurred. You get somebody from a ministry, they tell you, they send me and I come. I don't know about this thing. And don't tell me no, I have served on board representing the TUC, and it's a fact. Mr. President, I also want to take issue with this. Again, I'm not taking issue with the minister. I'm saying, let's go to page 9. Staff of the foundation. Let me quote with your permission. The foundation shall have staff as the board determines. Nothing wrong with that. But as we go down, the next 2 we'll read here. No person holding a senior management position with the foundation shall be paid a salary exceeding $30,000 per annum without the approval of the minister. Again, this is supposed to be a professional board. The public service has guidelines. We have salary scales. I work there. I could talk about it. And most of us work there, in fact. There are salary scales. So put a salary scale and let it be what the board is guided by. In one of our neighboring Caribbean countries, OECS, I had to laugh at this one. They put out an application, the government, for a CEO of the CBI. People with masters applied, PhD, bachelors. Similar structure, the minister has the final say. You know who got the job? A fellow with a high school a diploma. So the minister had the final say. And that's what I think we need to avoid. It is not a criticism of the government. It is something that I think we need to make part of our DNA. The president said that some of us in their DNA seems to have a no. My DNA perhaps have something of balance. We need to encourage this kind of wide tripartite behavior in our country. It brings out the best in us. We can, as the president said recently, the invitational meet, I had my doubts about the amount of money spent, but one thing you can't challenge beyond, it was a uniting factor. One man unite everybody. There was no green, no yellow, no color. There was no Baptist, there was no Obia, there was nothing. Everybody went there. And that's the point I'm making. So let's create the avenue for that to blossom. I'm not taking away anything from the government. The government could fire the board tomorrow. No problem. But don't create that kind of, in my opinion, failure. That's a failure because you oftentimes don't have people with that passion. And I'm in sports for 50 years. I could tell you that. You have people who come and they say, Ray, I never thought this thing was like that. And how you stay in that for all those years? You say, I had to dip my hand in my pocket. My wife, in fact, one gentleman, the wife came to tell me, let me tell you, I told my husband, either he married to sports or he married to me. So I hand him the checkbook, and he has to make a choice. The man comes and says, Ray, well, I done, the family come first. I still there. So I am not beating up on anyone. I'm telling you something that is practical. I also want to touch, Mr. President, something to me that is absolutely unnecessary. And it perhaps takes away my support from this bill. Let's go to page 16, Mr. President. Offenses and penalties. In the bottom of the page, I could understand that people who engage in theft and what have you, they must be dealt with. And people who cheat the foundation or the state, they must pay a price. In fact, as you know, I'm a strong advocate of hanging. And I have no regrets about that. I think that is a good thing to have in society because you're just not able to fix everyone. Page 16, I see. Yeah, page 16. the offenses and penalty, Mr. President. I don't know if you're... 16. Offenses and penalties. Right, the page before 17. Right. Right. It speaks to someone who engages in theft or what have you. It says here, Mr. President, a person who commits an offense under Section 1 may be arrested without a warrant by any member of the police force in full uniform or who suitably identifies himself or herself. Mr. President, I can't find that, to me, making sense. The point I want to make here, Mr. President, the police have a responsibility to investigate. So you say Ray Roberts commit a crime, investigate, the police do what they have to do. I am saying if somebody steals something from the corporation, there has to be an investigation. And the police investigation will lead them to a particular direction. And they must perform based on their investigation. Now, what I'm asking, is it going to be the minister or the CEO to call the police and say, Ray Roberts or whoever it is stole something there, take some documents, and the police without a warrant will come and arrest the person? I find that don't make sense. I understand the need, and I understand the need. No doubt about it, Minister. I understand the need to deal with people who seem to have an ability to just take things and believe they own it without recognizing that it is the property of the state. So I don't want you to get me wrong. All I'm saying, I find that is overstepping to say that, a person who commits an offense under Section 1 may be arrested without a warrant. I don't know. I mean, I could see if you commit a crime in public, that is it. But I may have stolen something some time ago, you're not too sure. But you believe it's me, so you call the police. I find that, Mr. President, a little mind-boggling. Mr. President, I want to commend the accountability aspects of the bill. I sort of like the fact that the minister spoke about the audited reports, the minutes being kept and stacked away, so any problems we can consult at the documents. And I also believe the minister is right when she says the Cultural Foundation, it's perhaps the engine of what will get this thing to where it ought to be, and I know we have awesome potential in that area of culture, creative arts. There's no doubt about it. So clearly, we need that institution. But I want to suggest, Mr. President, that the minister takes a second look at that bill. I know you have the expertise in the Legal Affairs Department and a wider society. I think we need to revisit some of the things. I really see no need, absolutely no need, that the minister be consulted on the salary or the remuneration. Set a scale. Set scale. The public service can help you with that. And the one about the police, I think that should be restructured. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator, the Honorable Brenda Hood.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I've listened to the member on the other side and have noted his concerns and want to assure him whatever we do will be in the interest of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique, and that, as I said before when I was talking on the Spice Mars Corporation, nothing remains stagnant. You pass a bill today, 2 months down the road, you may have to amend it. So I believe as the cultural cooperation evolves and we notice that there are need for changes, I can assure the member that changes will be made. I know he spoke about the constitution, the construct of the board, the members of the board. We have made changes to the members of the board, and consideration were given. You have, for the first time, on the Cultural Foundation, Cultural Cooperation, the Grenada Tourism Authority. They were not there before. And it is important that they be there because they go out throughout the length and breadth. You're not hearing me? Are you hearing me now? Okay.
Put it up.
Too short. Is it okay now? It's still not. He's struggling to hear. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. President. As I was saying, that I've listened to the senator on the other side, and I've noted his comments, and want to assure him that consideration will be given at some point as we review, as we spend time in the future. But also to say that in terms of the board of the foundation, for the first time, we are having the Grenada Tourism Authority on that board. As a matter of fact, last time when the members were appointed, we did put somebody there from the Grenada Tourism Authority because we felt it was necessary for a member of the authority to be there. The Grenada Spice Moss Cooperation on the Cultural Cooperation, this is the first time this Spice Moss will have a member on this board. The Conference of Churches has always been there, and they will continue. Creative Industry is the first time we have had this category of person on the board of the foundation. Carriacou Petit Martinique Festival's board is there, and also we will be including cultural corporations and management committees of public festivals. So there is always need to look at different persons out there in the community who are willing to give of their time, to give of their support, because at the end of the day, is not a club, and an individual club or the ministers' club, but it's people who can come together, put a lot of time and effort because they're all volunteering their time and making commitment that is in the best interest of the country, that we as Grenadians can all be proud of. So at this point in time, Mr. President, I beg to move the second reading of the bill.
Thank you. Honorable members, the question is, the bill be read a second time. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Cultural Corporations Bill 2017.
Senator Hood.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the Senate resolve itself into a committee of the whole Senate to consider the bill clause by clause.
Honorable members, the question is that the House resolves itself into a committee of the whole Senate to consider this bill clause by clause. All those who are of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Of the contrary, it's suggested that we do it part by part and for the efficacy of time. To consider the bill part by part. All those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do now have it. Honorable members, the Senate is now resolved into a committee of the whole Senate to consider the bill.
Part 2, Establishment of the Foundation and Related Matters.
Honorable members, the question is that Part 2, Establishment of the Foundation and Related Matters, form part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Part 3, Financial and Other Matters for Cultural Corporations.
Honorable members, the question to be considered is Part 3, Financial and Other Matters for Cultural Corporations. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Part 4, Miscellaneous.
Honorable members, the question is Part 4, Miscellaneous, forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Schedule 1, Procedure of the Board of the Foundation.
Honorable members, the question is that Schedule 1, procedure of the board of the foundation, forms part of this bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Schedule 2, designated cultural corporations.
Honorable members, the question is that Schedule 2, designated cultural corporations, shall form part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do indeed have it.
Part 1, preliminary.
Honorable members, the question is that Part 1, preliminary, forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. The contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do indeed have it. Senator Hood.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that the Senate resumes and the chairman of the committee reports progress on the bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the Senate resumes and the chairman of the committee reports progress on the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do indeed have it. Honorable members, the Senate now resumes. Honorable members, I have to report that the bill was considered by a committee of the whole Senate and passed without amendment. Senator Hood.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the chairman's report be adopted.
Honorable members, the question is that the chairman's report be now adopted. All those who have that opinion say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Senator Hood.
Mr. President, I beg to move the third reading of the bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill be read a third time. Honorable members, the question is that the bill be read a third time and passed. All those who are of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Clerk.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Cultural Corporations Bill 2017.
We would have completed the bills now, eh? Huh? Have any? No, well, except I got a message from...
Item 3, oath of allegiance or affirmation of a new senator. Item 4, confirmation of minutes.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the minutes of the proceedings of the ceremonial state opening of the 5th session of the 9th Parliament held at the Grenada Trade Centre on Friday the 2nd of December 2016 be taken as read.
State opening of the 5th session of the 9th Parliament held at the Grenada Trade Centre on Friday, 2nd December 2016 be taken as read. All those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Mr. President, I beg to move for the confirmation of the proceedings of the ceremonial state opening of the 5th session of the 9th Parliament held at the Grenada Trade Centre on Friday the 2nd of December 2016.
Honourable members, the question is that the said minutes be confirmed. All those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do indeed have it. Senator Steele.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the minutes of the proceedings of a sitting of the Senate held at the Grenada Trade Centre on Tuesday the 20th and Wednesday the 21st of December 2016 be taken as read.
Honourable members, the question is that the minutes of the proceedings of a sitting of the Senate held at the Grenada Trade Centre on Tuesday 20th and Wednesday 21st December 2016 be taken as read. All those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do indeed have it. Senator Steele.
Mr. President, I beg to move for the confirmation of the proceedings of the sitting of the Senate held at the Grenada Trade Centre on Tuesday the 20th and Wednesday the 21st of December 2016.
Honourable members, the question is that the said minutes referred to be confirmed. Those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do in fact have it.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the minutes of the proceedings of a sitting of the Senate held at the Grenada Trade Centre on Friday the 20th of January 2017 be taken as read.
Honourable members, the question is that the minutes of the proceedings of a sitting of the Senate held at the Grenada Trade Centre on Friday 20th January 2017 be taken as read. All those who are of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do indeed have it.
Mr. President, I beg to move for the confirmation of the proceedings of a sitting of the Senate held at the Grenada Trade Centre on Friday the 20th of January 2017.
Honourable members, the question is that the minutes of the proceedings of a sitting of the Senate held at the Grenada Trade Centre on the 20th January 2017 be confirmed. All those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do indeed have it.
Item 5, messages from the Governor General. Item 6, announcements by Mr. President.
Honourable members, I respectfully report to the House that I did receive a note of absence and of regret of that absence from Senator the Honourable Nazim Burke, who unfortunately had some personal unexpected challenges and would not be able to attend. He was hoping that he may attend late, but his attendance today is in doubt because of that. As a result, and in addition to the fact that we are yet not in possession of the extract of the Hansard, as you know, on the earlier, last week, Thursday, a matter of challenge under 36.5 arose under the imputation rule. And I was not in a position to give any guidance on the matter since the incident occurred when I was absent from the chair. I had not had the opportunity to consult with Senator Diallo, who was deputizing at the time, so I gave a commitment to address the matter today. Unfortunately, I am not in possession of the extract as the holidays, long holidays, and preparations for this meeting occurring yesterday prevented the clerk's office from procuring the extract. So that's point number one. And even if I had the extract, point number two, Senator Burke's absence, it would only be fair that I could not deal with the matter in his absence. I just wish to make those two announcements so that at the next sitting we will address this matter and the necessary direction would be given. Hopefully, by that time, we will have the extract, which we can then cause to be circulated. Thank you for your indulgence, honorable members.
Item 7, ministerial statements.
Honorable Instant Garvey.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise to update this honorable House on a few initiatives within the ministries I am covering in the Senate.
I don't know if you may have to direct your mic a little, but I have difficulty.
I think, yeah, the mails get a little heavier, Mr. President. It seems from here. So apparently we may have to... Well, it's a little bit better. Yes, Mr. President. So I rise to give some update on the ministries I am covering within the Senate. And firstly, I just want to speak to the Government Information Service. As you know, February the 19th, this government would have celebrated 4 years in office. And as a mark of tribute in recognizing this 4th historic anniversary, the GIS would have published a 4th anniversary review. I did bring some copies, Mr. President, which I would like to give to the clerk so it can be distributed to basically the members on the other side as well as the clerk and his team. But in this we will see some of the achievements of the government 4 years in office. And I must indeed say that the staff at the GIS had to work over time to ensure that it was published, prepared and ready for the 4th anniversary celebrations. Wonderful piece of history that I know former director of GIS, my good friend on the other side, Brother Ray, would love to keep in his archive. I want to move on to NADMA, National Disaster Management Agency, and on the 23rd of last month, the country participated in this annual exercise, Carib Wave, and the scenario was the country was impacted by a 2-meter wave, which was generated from an earthquake outside of Antigua in the north, and was impacting the northern and eastern coast of Grenada. So the exercise, the simulation...
I have not received the documents circulated in the Senate during sitting.
I will charge...
It is doubtful I will ask for a recall, but...
I will charge this to the Sergeant of Arms. I will charge him. Yes, Mr. President. And so the exercise was carried out in the St. Patrick area, and as I said, the simulation was a tsunami. And I think it was uplifting for St. Patrick in as much as Kikanjeni is just outside of St. Patrick. And not to say that we're expecting Kikanjeni to erupt and to create havoc. But just the awareness and the education is so important. I am pleased to report that over 700 persons participated in this exercise or evacuated. We had over 22,000 persons registering to receive information about the tsunami exercise. This by far is the largest that we have had within our region. As a matter of fact, Grenada again continue to lead in terms of tsunami education within our English-speaking region. Of this 22,000, some 15 or 17,000 are new registrants. It means, therefore, that the work that we've been doing within the National Disaster Management Agency is paying rich dividends throughout the country. People are becoming more aware as it relates to disaster management. I must say that as a result of this great achievement, last year we had an equally outstanding performance in the Carib Wave. As a matter of fact, last year it was held during the time of Intercall. And as the agency, we've been pleased and really excited to see that we had hotels participating and guests moving from hotel into the muster point. We had, it was, as I said, Intercall at the time, and Intercall was stopped for a while, and the information was broadcast to the patrons of the National Stadium. This augurs well for the management of disasters within the country. And as a result of all these successes, Grenada has been invited to participate in a forum in Costa Rica later this month to speak of the successes of Grenada, what we have been doing to get this sort of support from our people, and as we simply say, it's hard work, and presenting quality information, real information to people, because the information that we provide to the residents, they have to make decisions based on that. Could be life and death. Like yesterday, it came like a surprise. We had information coming from the Met Office talking about this strange phenomenon in that easterly wave that has been affecting the region, which will produce high waves in lower-lying areas like Carenage and the likes. We had to send this information very early out to users of the sea and people on the shoreline to let them know of the possibility of being impacted by such waves. Those sort of intervention and the provision of providing early information to our people obviously get people to realize if you are to be guided in terms of disaster management information, your official source is NADMA. And they receive and they compliment the agency for doing its work. What is important here, Mr. President, as we continue to work as a unit, NADMA, but with a wider stakeholder body, some 17 stakeholders participate every month in a NEAC meeting, which look at disaster management comprehensively. What we are seeing from this, the participation and the support from the wider stakeholder body, is saying to us that as long as you continue to provide timely information to people, they will participate. We're looking forward in the new school term to our annual disaster awareness quiz, which is done within the primary schools, and I must indeed say we have been getting tremendous support from the business community. We're looking forward to the support this year again for this exercise. I move on to the Ministry of Health, and I must indeed say the Ministry of Health continues to play its role in health care and the management of health care and health facilities through the length and breadth of this country. The Miracle Eye project continued, and we must indeed say that from the last report, just about 3 weeks ago, as it relates to the another roll-off of the Miracle Eye program, scores of Grenadians benefited from this very noble gesture that has been sponsored by the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and the government and people of Cuba. They have been contributing tremendously in the development of this country. And we must not, at any point in time, take it for granted that they ought to do this. They have their own challenges for themselves, but they continue to make a contribution in the social, economic development of this country, and for this we must be grateful and thankful. I also want to say, Mr. President, and I guess as much as you're aware of it, the region should be taking notice of the breakout or the outbreak of yellow fever within some South American countries. The Ministry of Health, as per usual, very proactive, started to sensitize the public on the importance of ensuring that our surveillance and monitoring systems are in place. We remember last year with the Zika, we were very early. We came out and we told the nation that it is out in Brazil and the likes and what we need to do. We've been commended highly by PAHO and the likes for being proactive. We again. So only yesterday we sent out information to the public, letting the public know that this is a problem that is occurring within South America. We know we're close. And we're asking our citizens to follow those practices that we have been talking about. Because again, the fever is being spread by a disease, by a mosquito. The vector is a mosquito. It's not an Aedes aegypti, but it's a mosquito. And we know how the mosquito breed, the life cycle, and we're asking people in this time to ensure that if there are garbage around, try to get rid of it. If there are receptacles that is catching water, to turn them down. Or if you have vase with water, it might be a good time to fill it with sand. So at least you protect your family within this period. And we will continue to sensitize the public because yellow fever is serious. It's a deadly threat to the survival of this region. We also want to, I want to make mention of the National Health Insurance. As you know, Grenada has embarked upon the unveiling of NHI for the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Pitts-Martinique. I think it's a noble and worthwhile initiative. I myself, over 25 years in the insurance industry, I understand the benefits of having insurance to take care of you in times of great need. And in so doing, health care. And one excellent attribute of this program, persons who will be enrolled, and as a matter of fact, there will be a registration where we're looking to register all of Grenada under NHI. Unlike private insurance program that has an end date, maybe age 60 or 65. Now NHI will be with you for the rest of your life. And unlike where, as it's obtained right now, persons who probably more affluent will be able to access more upscale care. We're saying NHI is designed to ensure that all Grenadians have access to the best health care possible. That is the objective of this program. So only recently we've had consultants from the University of the West Indies headed by Professor Theodore, who came in to help us to put the technical side of this project in place to ensure that when it is rolled out, no stones will be left unturned, and the proper methodology will be followed to ensure that the people of Grenada benefit from this very important initiative. As I've said before, if you do not have the finance, that will not preclude you from accessing proper health care. That is the objective. We're waiting for the report from Professor Theodore and his team to help us engage in whatever contribution level that will have to be made by all citizens. We must understand and we know that healthcare is very expensive. But as I've said before, if you don't have, that will not preclude you from being a recipient of the benefits of healthcare. So the government will make the contribution to ensure that every citizen benefits. And I think this further exemplifies what we've been saying before of being a government that cares and concerned. Health, NHI is a very good example that speaks to that, to provide that sort of service for our people. I know the team that is right now, Mr. President, I know you're very au fait with this, the committee that is responsible for its rollout. They have been doing what I consider to be an extremely important initiative or venture, where they have been going into regional countries who have implemented NHI and to do a review of the program, how they roll it out, what are the pitfalls if there were, what are the successes, as you said, the weaknesses, and to ensure that they mitigate against those weaknesses. And I consider this to be extremely important. But what is even more important to make mention of, Mr. President, it didn't cost the country to get our team into the regional countries to look at what they're doing. Those countries, Mr. President, I think I have 2 more minutes, is that?
You don't have no more time.
The court advises me that your entitlement is 10, but you are now at 15.
Oh, so I just close up, Mr. President. Thank you very much. I just want to say in closing that the NHI is designed to ensure that Grenadians on a whole will benefit from the best possible health care within Grenada and the region before us. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Garvey.
Mr. President, can I ask him a question on this?
Certainly, Senator Roberts.
Thank you kindly, President. Through you to the distinguished member, where can I obtain a white paper or a documentation on much of what you have said, except the excerpts from the radio, which really are vague? I would love to get a copy of a white paper or some documentation. The NHI.
Okay, thank you very much. Very important question. Mr. President, what we have been doing is holding a number of consultations around the country. And what we at this point is putting in place what will be NHI. So we're inviting persons like our goodly senator to visit those consultations, make a contribution when those presentations are made, and from that presentation you will have that white paper after we would have done the consultation. But at this point in time, many Grenadians are taking the opportunity when we visit their location to come out and to have their say in the generation, in the development of NHI. It is not a government thing. This is designed to ensure that the people of Grenada have their say in this final construct. So you have an opportunity to ensure that that white paper you're talking about is developed with your contribution in it. Thank you.
Mr. President, I want to ask a follow-up question. Yes, Senator, I hear what you're saying about the consultations and so on, but for us too in the private sector, it's critical that we have an understanding of what is being proposed and how it's going to be constructed. I hear you talking about consultations and so on, but you can't really have meaningful consultations if you don't know what is coming. So we need to have an understanding of what is being proposed so that when we review it, when you come to consult with us, we can make meaningful contributions. So I hear what you're saying, but we also need to get an idea of what is being proposed.
Okay, so what is happening at this point in time, Mr. President, is, as I've said, there is a framework as to where we want to go. That has not been fully defined as yet. Hence the reason why 3 weeks ago we had Professor Theodore and his team from the University of the West Indies to come here to help us to fashion what the member is asking for. But in the meantime, before that is done, we want his contribution, the chambers and every other Grenadian, to contribute towards that framework we're talking about. After that is done, and there is a paper that we can work with, there will be another round of consultation. So you will now have what he's asking for. But in the meantime, it will be difficult to give what he's asking for when we don't have it. We are preparing that right now. But as I said, your voice, your contribution is important, so join the consultations. I will be able, Mr. President, in a while, I could probably give the areas where we'll be going in the next 2 weeks. I can do that so at least our members here can join and have their say.
Senator Garvey, is that, yes, they would appreciate being consulted, but they represent a constituency. And for them to be engaged in that consultation, they must have some prior knowledge of what is to be discussed, what is being shaped or crafted. I think, is that, Senators, is that what I'm saying? In other words, they are not adverse to being involved in the process. But to get involved in the process, they must have some foreknowledge of what the process involves, so that they can then deliberate on that foreknowledge, then come to the engagement. What Senator Garvey is suggesting is that there is a wide engagement in which as many ideas as can flow as to what people think the national health insurance should do, what it should cover, some ideas on how they think it should function. And when sufficient of that is collected, then a formulation will be put for further consultation. I just hope I'm clarifying the two positions. They're not adverse or mutually exclusive to each other, but that's my understanding of what is being said on both sides.
You got it, Mr. President, as usual.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I rise to report on the operations of the Ministry of Carriacou and Petit-Martinique Affairs. Mr. President, sometime last year at the budget presentation, I know I did make some remarks and also to highlight some of the